Have you ever stopped to think about the power of your words? I mean, really think about it. Not just how they describe the world, but how they might actually, well, create it. Just consider that. What if your everyday language, the way you talk, holds a key to unlocking completely new possibilities, not just for you, but maybe for people around you, even whole organizations? That's exactly what we're diving into today. The topic is generative language. And we're focusing on the really profound ideas of an author named Tony Zampella. His ebook, An Introduction to Generative Language, it sort of reveals how understanding the philosophy and the pragmatics of language can fundamentally shift how we speak, how we listen, and ultimately how we act.
Yeah, Tony Zampella is a fascinating thinker. He works as an educator, consultant, researcher. His background is quite diverse. He's involved with the Pavana Learning Group. And his whole approach that kind of weaves together Western learning models with contemplative practices and this thing called ontological inquiry.
Ontological inquiry.
Yeah, that sounds deep. It is, yeah. It's basically about exploring the nature of being, how reality gets shaped by our language and our actions. The core goal of his work really is to help us develop our minds as like intentional systems for thought and meaning making.
Okay. So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack Tony Zampella's insights. Pretty groundbreaking stuff. We're going to explore the specific speech acts he focuses on and hopefully discover how this whole paradigm shift can empower you, listening right now, to create the reality you want, maybe overcome some hidden fears, and even potentially revolutionize how organizations work. Big goals. All right, let's unpack this. Tony Zampella kicks things off with a really critical distinction. It's between descriptive language and generative language. Yeah. Now, most of us, I think, operate mostly in that descriptive mode, right?
Yeah.
So what's the fundamental difference he wants us to grasp? Why is it so important?
It's absolutely crucial. It really flips the script on how we view language. So descriptive language, like Zampella explains, it offers evidence. It's about reporting on what is or what was. Like describing this table, I can give evidence. It's wood, it's brown, it exists. Generative language, though, he says it offers no evidence, only authority creating from nothing, from no evidence spoken from the depths of responsibility and integrity.
Wow. Creating from nothing.
Exactly. It's literally bringing something new into being just by speaking it. For Zampella, the core idea is huge.
Yeah.
Generative language is speaking that acts, listening that creates.
Speaking that acts, listening that creates. That's a powerful phrase. It's radical, isn't it? The language isn't just a label, but an action, a creation. Most of us are trained to observe, then report. So how does embracing this generative mindset change our whole approach, not just in big speeches, but like everyday conversations?
Well, it changes pretty much everything because it reframes language itself as action. Not just the words, the content, but action as the context. This means your view of reality, the foundation of your relationships, the trust in your environment. It's all defined by whether you honor your word. And Zampella builds this framework using what he calls linguistic speech acts, things like declarations, offers, promises, requests, assertions, assessments. It actually connects back to the philosopher John Searle, his theory of speech acts, the idea that these are the basic units of how we communicate.
Okay, speech acts. Let's dive into those. A really powerful one he starts with is declarations. Zampella highlights them as creating possibility just from your speaking. So what exactly is a declaration in this generative sense? It's more than just stating something, right?
Oh, much more. Zampella, and he draws on Alan Sealer here, defines a declaration as a commitment to generate a new context for action and commitment to the generation of a different reality. The key thing is authority. The speaker of a declaration has authority, not evidence. They aren't describing what is. They're literally calling something new into existence through their words, shaping the future.
And he gives some brilliant examples, really concrete ones, like Martin Luther King's "I have a dream," that wasn't a report on current events, or JFK's declaration about going to the moon.
Yeah, the JFK example is perfect. Zampella really emphasizes this. When Kennedy said, this nation should commit itself, landing a man on the moon before this decade is out, Zampella points out, the metal to create a spaceship for such a journey had not been invented. JFK had no evidence for his speaking. None.
That's incredible when you put it like that. No evidence.
Zero. But Zampella says his speaking created that possibility in the hearts and minds of all Americans. It opened up imagination, focused attention, got resources aligned, created this real urgency to act. It generated the possibility.
The sheer audacity of it, just willing this massive undertaking into being with words. So this powerful idea leads Zampella to ask his readers a really pointed question. What are you willing to say? What keeps you from declaring it? I bet, and it makes you think, doesn't it? What futures could you be creating right now if you just had the courage to declare them? Okay, so declarations paint these huge possibilities. But then there's the day-to-day stuff, right? The commitments that actually build trust and move us forward. That brings us to the power of promises. Zampella digs into this. How does he define a truly generative promise? It's got to be more than just, yeah, I'll try.
Absolutely. He's very precise. A promise is a commitment to another to fulfill a condition of satisfaction through specific action by a particular time. Notice all the parts. Commitment, another person, a clear condition, specific action, and a deadline. He really stresses that promises, agreements, and commitments alter the future. They add meaning to our word, which defines our trustworthiness. I mean, think about it. He points out that all financial transactions depend on promises. Your word has real power to shape what happens next.
And this is where, for me, it got really interesting. Zampella kind of pulls back the curtain on why we often fail at promises, even with good intentions. He flags some common ways we mess up.
He does. He details several tracks or impediments. First, just saying yes without really meaning it, just to end the conversation. Or saying yes, but, which isn't a full commitment.
The conditional yes.
Right. Second, we sometimes overpromise to look or feel good. We want people to like us or agree with us, so we commit to things we maybe can't deliver. And third, probably very common, we just overextend ourselves because saying no feels uncomfortable. We don't want to disappoint, and all these patterns lead to us being stretched thin, often failing, and that really erodes trust over time.
So true. So if those are the traps, how does Zampella help us build a better foundation? What's his framework for making promises that are actually powerful, that are generative?
He lays out a set of expectations, things to consider before you commit. You need to ask, who am I promising? Will they actually hold me accountable? What exactly am I promising? Is there a shared understanding of what done looks like? When will I deliver? A specific time? Are there other specifics or conditions? Am I actually competent to do this? What's the broader context? And crucially, am I remaining at choice? Meaning you're empowered to make the promise freely, and you also retain the choice, if necessary, to revoke it.
Revoke it. That sounds counterintuitive to building trust.
Well, he argues that revoking a promise responsibly, meaning as soon as you know you can't fulfill it and communicating that clearly, is actually better for trust. It restores one's word more effectively than just letting the deadline pass and failing silently.
Okay, that makes sense. Honesty up front. So what about practical day-to-day steps? How does Zampella suggest we strengthen our actual promising muscles?
He gives some really concrete practices. First, just pause. Don't automatically say yes. Let the request sink in as a real commitment. Second, listen to your gut. If you're unsure, don't commit immediately. Instead, promise to promise. Say, let me check my capacity. I'll get back to you by specific time.
Promise to promise. I like that.
Yeah. Third, check your calendar and actually schedule the work involved in the promise. Treat it like a real appointment. And fourth, take the time you need to consciously accept the request, decline it respectfully, or negotiate the terms, the what or the when. He argues that doing this consistently, this rigor around promises, will earn you a reputation for being trustworthy. It builds relational capital.
Right. It moves beyond just hoping things work out. Okay, so from declarations and promises, Zampella then shifts to requests. He poses this question. How many requests does it take to coordinate action and generate commitment to bring forth a desired future? Why does he see requests as so fundamental?
Well, requests are basically the engine of coordination. If you want something done with or by someone else, you need to make a request. When they're spoken intentionally, Zampella says, they bring forth a specific future. They establish those clear conditions of satisfaction we talked about. They create context, define credibility. They enable collaboration. He notes that high-performing leaders really get this. They understand how speaking and listening consistently to requests develops a mood for trust and results.
But making requests, that can feel really hard for a lot of us, can't it? It feels vulnerable, almost scary sometimes. What are the common fears Zampella sees holding us back?
Oh yeah, he lists quite a few common impediments. The big one is probably fear of rejection, just hearing no. But there's also the fear of looking helpless or, dependent or looking incompetent, like you should be able to do it yourself. Fear of owing someone a favor, fear of imposing or being seen as too demanding. Even just the fear of not being liked or accepted if you ask for something. These fears can be really paralyzing.
Definitely feel familiar. So if those are the barriers, how does Zampella suggest we make requests that are actually powerful? Requests that invite collaboration, not just trigger those fears.
The absolute key, he emphasizes, is that powerful requests are based on choice, both for the asker and the receiver. This means when you make a request, you have to explicitly build in the possibility for the other person to accept it, decline it, or make a counteroffer, negotiate the terms. It's not a demand.
Giving them the out, essentially.
Exactly. And he adds a really important point. When a request is declined, high-performing people do not dwell on the apparent rejection, but rather ask, what's next? They treat the no as information, not a personal failure. It helps them figure out the next step, maybe make a different request, or find another way. It keeps the action moving.
That's a huge reframe of rejection. And Zampella pushes this even further with this kind of provocative paradox. He says, rejection is the price we pay for the arrival of our dream or next goal. Quote. He even suggests that, counting rejections can be a practice, seeing them not as failures but as steps on the path. That really changes the emotional weight, doesn't it?
It really does. It turns rejection from a stop sign into just data, part of the process.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit from the individual speech acts. Zampella also applies this thinking to larger groups. He has a chapter on the promises of an organization. How does this whole generative language idea scale up?
He argues that organizations fundamentally are a network of agreements. That's what they are at their core. So the strength, the clarity, the reliability of those agreements, those promises made between people, directly dictates the organization's capacity. Its capacity to coordinate actions, serve customers, innovate, handle change, everything. When people consistently honor their promises within the organization, it builds that crucial mood of trust. It fosters a collective sense of competence, reliability, sincerity. Without it, things grind to a halt pretty quickly. You get cynicism, inefficiency.
Breakdown, yeah, makes sense. Scaling up individual integrity to collective integrity. Now, Zampella also talks about speaking and listening that disrupts the predictable flow of life. What's he getting at there, going beyond just making things work smoothly?
Yeah, this is about intentionally using language to break out of comfortable routines or limiting patterns. He identifies the 3 key ways to do this. First, making bold promises. These are commitments you make before you know exactly how you'll fulfill them. They stretch you. Making them, he says, causes us to become more, to view and engage our resources differently, or make requests of others in a way that might be new for us. They force growth by challenging your existing knowledge.
Okay, bold promises. What else?
Second, making unreasonable requests. Now, unreasonable doesn't mean impossible or rude. It means requests that lie beyond a predictable or anticipated response. He gives an example, maybe asking for a 20% raise when 5–10% is the norm. It might seem unheard of, even unsettling.
Right, definitely outside the usual script.
Exactly, but making such a request, he argues, brings forth conversations I might otherwise avoid or ignore. Whether you get the 20% or not, the conversation itself creates self-awareness, opens new possibilities, challenges assumptions. It disrupts the predictable dialogue.
Interesting. So it's about the conversation it generates, not just the outcome.
Precisely. And the third opportunity he highlights is listening for requests, especially the ones hidden inside complaints. And this is fascinating. Zampella states flatly, the most common hidden requests lie inside of complaints.
Hidden requests inside complaints. Okay, so instead of just hearing someone moan or gossip or getting dragged into negativity, we can actually turn those moments into something productive.
Yeah.
It sounds challenging. How do you do that without just sounding dismissive of their feelings?
It requires a real shift. He talks about becoming a generative listener. Your role is to consciously shift the focus of the conversation from the past, the complaint, to the future, the request. And he gives very practical questions you can ask someone who's complaining, questions that gently pivot the conversation. What can I do? What would you like? What request do you have here? Do you have a suggestion? Do you see a way we could resolve this?
So you're not ignoring the complaint, but you're inviting them to move towards action, towards a request.
Exactly. You're helping them articulate the underlying need or desire that's fueling the complaint and turning it into a potential action.
And Zampella connects this directly to leadership, right? He says leaders always have a choice to what they pay attention, to whom they listen, and which conversations they empower.
Yes. They can choose to get drawn into those disempowering complaint loops, or they can actively listen for and encourage requests, fostering a mood or expectation of results. It's about consciously curating the conversational environment.
Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground here. From rethinking language itself to these specific speech acts, declarations, promises, requests, and then applying it to organizations and even disrupting our own patterns. It's a really comprehensive framework Zampella offers.
It really is. And if
Hmm.
you connect it all back, the core message is powerful. Zampella's work really underscores that language isn't just this neutral tool we use to describe things, it's more like the very fabric of our reality. Understanding that, internalizing it, fundamentally changes how we engage with the world, how we build relationships, and how we literally create our future. It calls for real intentionality in how we speak and listen.
So, thinking about this, what does it all mean for you listening right now? Maybe consider the next conversation you have today. Could you spot a hidden request lurking inside a complaint? Or maybe think bigger. What's one unreasonable request you could make, or perhaps one bold promise you could declare that might just stretch you beyond your current limits, and maybe, just maybe, open up a future you haven't even dared to imagine yet? That's it for this deep dive. We hope exploring Tony Zampella's insights gives you some powerful new tools for wielding your words. Until next time, keep diving